God is love. This marks the beginning and the end of our journey in understanding. This is what's going on. Love is very important as a concept in which being understands itself. You see, God is faced with all the philosophical problems that you are. He solves them. He actually solves existential dilemmas. In his fullness of being. It's a weird idea. God is love is where epistemology goes to die. It is where understanding understands that the only thing it can understand is that it is love. It's not just any old concept. It is the concept to God. This is why it's so important that the mind associate God is love as a concept, which takes over the brain in a certain way. Other concepts simply won't work ultimately. That God is love is a revelation. It cannot be totally fathomed or deduced from axiomatic philosophy. Not possible. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it's just that kind of thing that wouldn't be able to do so. So what is it? The thing to which metaphors relate. The thing to which language is grounded by. What is it? Ultimately, God can only understand that it is love. God is love. Because the beginning and the end for God, you see, are the same. And only Christianity reveals this in its radical, hysterical, aesthetic, philosophical fullness. The first thing God sees is love. Mary, the mother he conceived, the Immaculate Conception. And she is love. And I am love. Babies know that they are loved, that they are worth it. Babies have no qualms about accepting it. The baby Jesus accepts it, and he accepted it all his life, even into the darkness of sin of the world. But first thing first, she is love. What's the last thing that Jesus sees? Her. Love. Again. And that's why he does it. It's all about her. Because she is reality, you see. The Immaculate Conception is reality to God. The uncreated Immaculate Conception is reality to God. It's what freedom does when freedom's let loose. From the maximally simple state to the end of time, that's what freedom is. And she just takes the form of the Immaculate Conception. The uncreated Immaculate Conception. And then God created the world because God looked at the Immaculate Conception and said, who am I in this game? I'm Jesus Christ. And the system turned on because he let it turn on. All of reality, all of freedom, irreducible, mysterious. Why did it do what it did? God does it. God's figuring it out by living it so that he can know why he is Mary. Why he is his own mother. Why he is his own bride of Christ. And then whether you're a boy, a girl, the first thing anyone sees is the love of the mother. Whether you're a dog or a cat, the first thing anyone sees is the love of the mother and the total acceptance of the child into the love. Total receptivity without the fear of it being undeserved. It's deserved because it's love. And what Christ reveals through this perfectly aesthetic story, which actually reveals the structure of reality, is that it is real because it is choosing to be real so that it can know why it had to be Jesus Christ in order to create its own mother. And it's like a circuit loop. This is why God is love. He can't understand really why reality exists, other than the fact that he infinitely understands it. And there's this weird sense where it just goes on forever in understanding, because it is understandable. But God can only think of one thing at a time. God can know anything that can be known, but you can only know one thing at a time. In a sense, even to God. That's why he's being itself. He's not a being. He is being itself. And she is love. She is the immaculate conception of reality. Christianity alone reveals the absolute structure of the metaphysical conception of reality that God has. He's trying to figure out how it's possible that he had to be Jesus Christ in the story. Because Jesus Christ felt free in it, but knew he was actually determined on the outside by his Father. And the way that the paradox met is that his will was totally determined to the will of the Father. So there wasn't any contradiction, because he's trying to figure out how he is married, essentially. God is love. Love answers philosophical questions because it refuses to acknowledge them as problems, but rather glorious mysteries of being, which are ultimately just love, which is much more like an object or a reflective surface of a certain kind than it is a conceptual problem. It's so conceptual, it's actually external to God. God is love. And then the amazing final aspect of it all is that the truth of it is felt from within as the glorious experience of love, which is self-validating, which is what the will wants to go toward, which is kind of then understood to be why it is love, because that's just what the will is attracted to ultimately. The will is just attracted to love, irreducibly, non-stoppably, because it's just so glorious. And the only reason we don't recognize this is because the human world is a story of drama and pain, and that's what makes it interesting to God. And interesting to you. And interesting to reality. It kind of grounds reality in like the neurotic struggle to understand its own loveliness. God is love, and Christianity is the truth. Jesus was God, and he's figuring out why. And it just begs to be understood because it is love, because love begs to be accepted and given. And that is understanding itself. Love wants to be understood by being loved. Understand me by being loved. And this is the relation to everything. This is what grounds, quote-unquote, material reality, which is ultimately, we know, crazy. Quantum superpositions, multidimensional universes, an idea in the mind of God. God is love. That's what he knows. And everything else is a kind of geometric understanding form attached to what he knows. But there she is, always, everywhere he goes, the mama matrix. She's there. And she wants life. And God made her real, you see, because she was so amazing, because Mary was so incredible. God made her real, even knowing the pain that it would cause. But he does what he needs to do and puts himself deep in the system to say, I know it seems like a pain, guys, but God is love. You got to trust me and find me. Because ultimately we all choose our own pain from when we're babies. It's subconscious mostly, but we choose our own pain. And once you can really accept that, for you, really for you, don't talk about the world right now, for you, once you can really accept that, then you realize it is love, and you've just been resisting it because you want to play a certain kind of mental drama. Because you're afraid that it is like what it really could be like, and what it was once upon a time in your bassinet. God is love. It is the revelation of love is all about the giving of the self and the receiving of love and the giving of the self. And this all has to do with the will, which is the selection mechanism at the core of reality. There's dynamic instructions to reality when people say God is love. And only Christianity truly articulates it as a fundamental, ultimate truth with a radically aesthetic, determinate story attached in the world. Why am I Jesus? God wants to know. Why is she Mary? And not what all she could have been, which is another thing God can just see when he stares at the Immaculate Conception. What she is everything she could have been but wasn't. That's what information is. Everything it could be but's not. That's what consciousness is. Consciousness, according to the integrated information theory, is the reduction of uncertainty in a repertoire of possible conscious states. Everything I could be is attendant to what I am. I am the negation of all the things I could have been. She is his negation, ultimately. When he just sees her as an object of love, totally mysterious. Why is she Mary? Why did consciousness do that particular form? She's the soul of mankind. And everyone has their own soul, their own statue of Mary, their own mannequin. That is their negation. Because ultimately Mary is God's negation. God is love. It's the only thing that can be known. So you let go of everything, and you see what sin kind of was. You just avoid everything that even could possibly sinful, because it's just a waste of your time. Because it's just love. And then there's some great pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And Jesus reveals it, man. The kingdom of heaven is in you. We're in an idea that God's having. And we got to just make sense of it how we want to make sense of it. With the fullness of love in God. Because ultimately he knows it's love also because he can just see her face, but also that she lets him be totally free. Totally. Even to become Jesus. God is love, is the truth. That Jesus Christ knows for sure.